So first question I have for you, Ashley, is could you start by telling us about your journey and what inspired you to create Supper House?
Hi, I'm Ashley. So yes, I founded Supper House to basically create conversations like between industries. So a bit of background. I I basically graduated with interior design. But of course, being somebody who has a very diverse interest in a lot of the different industries, like I'm interested in art, I'm interested in painting, I'm interested in fashion. I feel like there is no, um, I mean, there is no space or no, I mean, there was never a place where, if in Singapore it's like, if it's art, it's art, if it's ID, it's ID. So you rarely venture beyond your chosen path. But of course, that's something that I thought was personal to me before COVID. Where everything takes on a very traditional approach. It's it's kind of like binary, and so but because someone like me who has a range of interests, I find it very difficult to belong. So then, what do you do? So in COVID, I actually had to face a painful decision of do I continue to stay in Hong Kong where I was based in 2020 or come back to Singapore. And then, of course, I came back to Singapore and not knowing what to do at home, being bored, jobless. I started to think like, what could I do with my free time? What was it that I needed when I graduated as an interior design graduate many years ago? What did I want? I thought I needed a place where I could share what I feel, share what I think, and then so with that in mind, I created Supper House as a space where um, people could share, could talk. But of course, um, you know, that was pretty much how Supper House came along, as a place to further conversations. So throughout like the 14 years that I was working, I was basically in interior design. I was doing visual merchandising for small luxury goods. I was doing visual merchandising for fashion. I was doing like interior design for sales flats and sales galleries. So I also noticed that it's quite interesting because these few industries, they don't kind of talk to each other. So you have like designers who do what they do best, the contractors who do what they do best, and then eventually when I was at an MNC doing like perfumes and cosmetics retail design, they are in a world of their own again. So then I started thinking like, what if there are areas where they could lapse? What if I could bring the knowledge that I have in the different industries into the next industry? So when this area lapse, would there be conversations?
So you're
And
talking that everybody's in their silos, but you wanted
yes,
these silos to intersect in some way.
correct. Because I myself come from the different silos, and I find it very difficult. Because then, like as an example, like if I were to introduce or try to ask my contractors from one silo to participate in a tender in another silo, the answers are it can get pretty awkward because they'll be like, "Oh, we're not part of this industry," you know. But then again, what you are doing in your industry could make a difference in another industry. So then that's where Supper House came about. In fact, the name is also reflected as such. Like house is actually with my former training as an interior designer, and then supper is where you only meet people that you like, or you would talk about projects that you are personally very attracted to. It's also like that meal where you really hang out with colleagues, friends that are personal to you. In comparison with the rest of the other meals like breakfast, lunch, dinner. So I thought supper is a very personal thing, and so that's why I named it as such that you're able to have conversations in a space. So yeah, that was how Supper
Mm.
House came about.
The idea of conversations is very interesting. I mean, we were talking about it, and this is not in the questions, but
Um,
the idea of conversations and art, like
mm,
that's a meaningful thing?
I think they came out of a place of sharing. So like in what supper so in recent years, I guess when I started Supper House, I kind of wanted it to be an interior design space, a creative agency. Of course, that's something that I thought, coming from a family of business owners, I always wanted something of my own. But of course, then you know through in life, you I found it interesting because then I thought at the end of the day I wanted to be like um from industries to industries. Eventually I thought that I will open my own creative agency, but then again along the way I got stuck in an MNC because it was so comfortable. The everything about it is okay. There is a very clear career trajectory that actually kind of like twisted the path a bit for me as well, because I got complacent. Basically I was so happy doing what I'm doing, and I kind of forgot what I wanted. So then with post COVID, then that came back with that conversation that I had with myself. What was it that I need? What was it that I want? And then of course then that idea of wanting a thing of your own came back. And then of course then how art came into the picture was really about how, as when I first graduated, it was actually very difficult for me to find a job in the design market. So then it's just difficult. I think even till now, everybody from the creative worlds or creative schools, we face the same issues. So then I started to think like, what can I do with Supper House? What could I do with the real estate, with the space that we have? Of course, in Singapore, a lot of it deals with like, oh, we don't have this space, we have a lack of space. Um, that's where the art component came in actually. It was really out of sharing. Of course, you know, during that time, now there is this term called third space, but back then I never thought of it as a third space. I just thought of it as a space that I could share with recent graduates who just graduated. Um, Beyond the grad show that you're given, you need some space, some time to really speak with the audience, speak with the population, on how you could further improve. And then because I'm dealing with interior design, there is that space for it where in the weekends I could open up the space for artists to actually share, to show their works. And so that's where the art came in. It's also for them to have a conversation basically with the rest of the industries or with the things that I do in my day job, which is like retail design, interior design. And so it becomes like this roja of things that's going on, where they get to share, they get to interact with each other on what makes life meaningful, I guess.
Yeah, there are a few interesting things that you touched on in terms of like space, in terms of sharing. We'll come back to that later. Um, First of all, before we carry on talking about like all the different executions of Supper House and things like that, we've heard about the origin story, but I want to find out about the philosophy. What is the core philosophy that drives Supper House? The question, I mean, if Supper House is an art platform, what does art mean to you personally? Do
Mm-hmm.
you see it as a commodity? Do you see it as something else?
I think what I feel about it is that it is a way of sharing a perspective, a way of sharing what one feels for, a way of communicating. With art, I feel like they are very honest communicators who fights for different things. So there's artists who represents or who really stand for certain things, and I think that is very precious. Again, I thought that you know it it should be a place where you're able to share your opinions, and further discussion or communicate basically. And so that's why that's where we thought it was important to provide that kind of space for conversations.
So the core philosophy of Supper House is essentially being a space that drives conversations.
Yes, that drives
That's
sharing.
just sharing.
Yes.
because in Singapore the art world is so large and so varied. Um, if Supper House exists to drive conversations, where within that spectrum of art does Supper House sit? And what kind of role do you think, what kind of unique role does Supper House play in that spectrum?
So far, what we have done is really providing space for these voices, and a lot of them are very new. So, in terms of artistries or creative talents, I think we have always been open to working with artists that are very conceptually driven, have very well thought of um, mental process. So that's where we thought we stand for them to actually showcase works that has nuances and very layered. So how I actually find one big way of looking for artists for me is actually going to graduation shows and then looking at the works that they have and trying to peel away the layers, trying to peel away beyond the visual. Of course, they need to look inviting and attractive enough, but beyond that surface layer, what lurks underneath? Like, what are they trying to say?
So when it comes to, let's say, the layers beneath, what kind of artistic ideals or values do you look for in these artists that you choose to feature?
Authenticity and honesty. Like, what are they
Authenticity and
really
honesty.
standing for? What are they really thinking of when producing? I think that to me, authenticity is very, very important. I mean, okay. To me, it's really about what they stand for in light of like current social media, where everybody is very quick to judge, where very quick to comment. Um, in the graduation shows that they have, what is it that they show, and whether it's robust enough to carry on. So of course, in Supper House we try to put them with emerging no, with established artists as well, so that they're able to also pass on their knowledge. We also try to do shows with artists from different backgrounds or different disciplines. So there could be painters, sculptors, so that they don't really cannibalize. It's not a competition, but it's more like a sharing session amongst them. So, like, for example, we don't have 10 painters at one go, because then you're actually competing for the same collecting pool. You would be basically having pretty much this is what I think, pretty much the same techniques, which again is unique to each person. But then again, it could be or it could not be shareable or transferable. But then again, if you have like a printmaker, for example, you have a sculptor, you have um, a, a, a illustrator or a software-based artist, then it becomes such that their skills would be transferable, where it bleeds or it will lapse. And I think that's interesting. But of course, beyond the disciplines, we're also looking at the year of how established they are, because then with that, they are also able to cross transfer what they know. Yeah.
Because I see, like, or in case you didn't know, we're having a series of art installations in our showroom that is curated by Supper House. The series is called Kaimen Jianshan, and Ashley and team has created a beautiful structure whereby there's a new artist every month. I want to ask you about the series as well. The art series is titled Kaimen Jianshan, and that's a Chinese idiom for, literally it means open the door to see the mountain, but the meaning of the idiom is to get straight to the point. So it's a very interesting title. It's featured a range of artists. You have visual artists, you have poet
Text
artists,
artists,
text artists, caricaturists,
yes.
and there's more. Um, what's the story behind this specific title, 开门见山?
I think it's really about, for all the conversations that I was talking about, I was trying to start a conversation. I think 开门见山 is actually one that is very contradictory or very ironic, because then again, with 开门见山, it literally means like open door, see mountain. This every year has a curatorial theme. This year's theme is actually, the thematic feature is why, or on which values are inscripted upon. So with 开门见山, I thought of, why not we call it as it is, or we address something or get straight to the point, because then in the world of social media, sometimes you don't get straight to the point. You just basically drift around trying to be nice. With 开门见山, it's really like, I was really thinking of how different people views the same thing differently. So here I had an analogy that I shared with the artist when I delivered the curatorial brief of Mount Fuji. So we know that Mount Fuji is a sacred mountain. It's probably like, it's important to the Japanese. But again, the importance of that value is very varied, and it's actually very high in contrast. So like the numerous ryokans, Fuji-Q theme park, or that viral Lawson's marketplace.
I saw the video of that. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, the crowd and the tourism, right? So it's like over tourism. But to this, to the economy that is being sustained by Mount Fuji, as a natural, landscape thing, that mountain actually means money. It's a symbol of commerce, whether you like it or not. When it is generating a lot of revenues and incomes for these companies, then you move that perspective to a Singaporean. So we'll go there for holidays, we'll go there for hiking, we'll go there for various reasons, but all of them generally pertains leisure or holiday making, basically. Then that's where the contrast lies, because then for us is, we go there, spend money, it gives us happy memories, and it's good, it's nice. But then again, to the countless commercial entities around the mountain, it basically is reduced to nothing much more than a money generating thing. Same item, different values. And so that's where I thought, this year, why not we look at the box as a box? It is a box, but what we put inside is what matters. And so that's why I thought it's very interesting, because everybody looks at, or every artist would look at the box differently, even though it's the same box, but everybody would choose to present it in how they want to. So I thought that's quite interesting, because it's 开门见山啦. In that sense, I think, yeah, same item, different perspectives, different values.
The box is an interesting thing as well. And for people who don't know, basically Ashley and team have built this black box that sits in the middle of the showroom. It's a monolith. Sometimes when it's closed, people wonder what it's all about, but actually, it's meant to house different artists, and the artist has a different interpretation of how to use the box every single time. I wanted to ask about the box as well, because I know it's a supper house signature. Tell us more about why the choice of black. How is it a supper house signature?
I think I always thought of how, when we think, we compartmentalize, and how we compartmentalize in boxes. Like, this memory belongs to this experience belongs to that. And I thought it would be interesting if we were to figuratively, remove that box, and then we present it to the audience in a physical manifestation of what goes on within a box, or what goes on within a black box. But of course, with a black box, it's also very performative, because then we know that it's a theater thing. But at the end of the day, I think it's really about how we compartmentalize our feelings as people, our memories, and it's it's in a way taking out this little deposit boxes to share. But again, that is the very romantic version of it.
It's a beautiful thought. I mean, if you think about the different artists that have come through the box already here at Journey East, every single artist has brought a point of view that is somewhat inspired by their journey in life, and
Yes.
from their memories, from the path that they have taken, their experiences, and that has culminated in the artwork that is present in the box. Yeah, and so this really fits very nicely with the idea of compartmentalization, or rather the memory box that you have. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I mean, people have said that actually even the curation of Supper House is a form of art in itself. Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel that the way you curate is there is art to it as well, rather than just randomly selecting people?
I guess it's really, then it's back to like creating conversations. Like, how do you share what is dear to you, what is of values to you. Like, this is already a fifth year of curation, although I don't really like, I like to call myself a facilitator, because first and foremost, I think maybe that's too academic for me. So yes, I like to call myself a facilitator, because what I really do is facilitate, such that they are able to show, they're able to articulate what is important to them. And I guess with that box, it's also, in a way, a box keeps things inside, but it also keeps things outside. So it depends on how you look at it. With the box here, we deliberately punctured a couple of petals into the box, so that the artist can also choose like how porous they want this box to be, which in terms shape, or they are able to, using the same box across 8 months, they're also able to shape the outcome. And again, then it becomes programmable. So I guess what I do is really about giving them a space, or a a voice. Yeah.
Yeah, you're a facilitator of conversations for them to
Yes.
have more conversations with people within the art community, people outside of the art community. Very curious question. Why are conversations, why do you think they're important to you? Because it seems that you're doing this for the sake of facilitating conversations. You want people to have conversations with each other. Why is that? Why do you want people to talk to each other?
I think because I feel, with social media, it's actually a conversation killer, because I think people are very, very quick to judge, for good or for bad, by what they see through the screen. Like, you're quick to comment, you're quick to judge, and it's you don't have space for a conversation. And so I feel that's something that I think is very important, because I mean, when I was in Hong Kong, it was unfortunate because I was there during the protest. And it happened to me personally, and I was very, very frustrated. And I think it's something that disturbs me from then to now, and I still see it happening. So of course, when I was there, it was basically the Hong Kongers having their protest of uh, blue, and now I can only remember it vaguely, but they were basically two sides at opposition, and me being the poor Singaporean in a Hong Kong office, um, of course I try to stay neutral politically, not on either side. But there are so many times that I was forced to basically take a position of either you're pro-government, or you're pro-establishment, or anti-establishment. But then again, as a foreigner, it's like I don't understand enough to even take a side.
Yeah.
But then again, you're in a Hong Kong office. You're basically, it's you're put in a situation where you're either with us or you're not with us. So eventually I was like, oh, but if I were to be with you, I would lose my friends there or colleagues. But if I were to be there, then I would be here. So I was in a position where it was very, very awkward. It was very difficult because you don't understand. And I'm not even a Hong Konger. And I think that's really about conversation because there's no, I think it's, a lot of things in life is non-binary. It is not a place where you either choose one or zero. There needs to be a space for conversation. And I think that's really important. So that's where this entire conversation and facilitation came about.
Because I noticed in the art community, different artists have different positions, and we spoke about this before, whereby good art always has something to say. There is a point, a message to be told within good art, and sometimes it can get quite polarizing. Sometimes messages can get very strong. So how do you negotiate all that with strong points of views, polarizing points of views, different communities? How does Supper House negotiate all of that?
I think, well, of course, there are a wide range of artists. Some more pointed than the others. But then again, that is solely dependent on myself or my fellow colleagues to really go out, interact, talk to the various artists that we have shown to see, you know, where they stand for, what we stand for, and how we are able to compromise. And so I guess you know, it's really about the appetite, or it's really about how willing they are to have a conversation with the audience. And in this case, it's really about how art is being perceived in the community. How willing you are to actually have that conversation. Of course, if you're somebody who's everybody believes in very different things. It's very, very personal. Of course, there's nothing against an artist who has a very fierce personal opinion on something. But you know, for me, it's really like, how do you communicate? How do you actually get um, what you believe in out, and how much you're willing to facilitate? Because when we say all this, we really want to be understood. We really want to be somebody whom um, you know, really want to be understood. And so, but if you're in how you want to be understood, but you shut it out, I think then there's no conversation to be had. Then
So what
that's
you're
a
saying,
total different thing.
what you're saying is that there's no point in sending out a message if the message is not going to be heard. If the person is going to shut down on the other end, then there's no communication.
Yeah. Or if you're so entrenched in your position, then there is no point in. I won't say it's no point. That it will be harder.
It will be harder.
It will be more difficult to get a message through. Yeah. So it's kind of like a two-way conversation thing.
Yep. Because I've noticed also in the artists that you curate, the artists have various layers in terms of their art. At the very end of it may be a very strong message, but
Yes.
It's up to you to peel away the layers.
I think all of us have a very, very strong message within us. Like, we all fight for different things, we all believe in different things. But how does that come out? That is really what is important. Yeah.
So it's interesting how or why you decided to work with a furniture shop of all places. The series Kaimen Jianshan goes on for 8 months, all the way until January 2026. Stay tuned. Why did you decide to work with a furniture shop to showcase all these artists as opposed to a traditional gallery?
I think from the start, Supper House was also created, you know, to really show that art is not always shown in galleries. To me, I feel like a gallery space could be off-putting to somewhat, you know, um, part of the population. In fact, for myself, like when I was younger, sometimes working into a gallery can be very, very stressful. It's like, am I allowed to ask certain questions? If I have to ask, like, is this a painting? Will I be judged? If I ask, who is it by? Would I sound like I don't belong? So then, in this white cube space, it is it could be very stressful for certain people. And I think from the offset, when Supper House was created, of course, conversations aside, it has to be a space where you feel comfortable, um, where you feel that it is okay to be yourself. It is okay to ask silly questions, like, how is this painting different from that? What is this technique? You know, what's the difference between, even I myself get stuck, like oil painting and acrylic painting, or you'll be surprised that there are people who can't tell. But of course, then, um, and you'll be like, if I ask such a question, will I be deemed, you don't belong in this world? So then, when Supper House actually came about, the whole idea was putting art in spaces where it's more domestic, it's more homely, where it's okay. And that was also a long running commentary on how white cube spaces, um, you know, might not work in this generation. And so then, for me, it's really, or for us, it's really about putting art, um, as something that is relatable. And of course, um, in a furniture shop, I think the people who comes here are very pointed in what they want, which is, in Tan Boon Liat building, it's where, people who are buying house, who's doing interior design, who's looking for furniture, it's very, very
It's very focused.
focused.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it's interesting as well, because you wouldn't think of, coming here to see art. So it becomes like a surprise. And then for the people or for the followers of the artist, for the collectors, you will not also walk into a furniture shop for no reason, basically. And then it forces you to, come into contact with spaces that you normally won't come into, where you actually get to see different things. Like this year, I think it's one of the unique locations, because the other one is in a wet market.
Yes, Jurong West Wet Market.
Yeah, Jurong West Wet Market. So again, it's also the same logic, where you put it in surprising places, such that they don't expect. So it's really like opening up the box to an audience that whom in their day to day might not even walk into a gallery, or one might not even chance upon art. I really want them to think that I didn't know art can exist in such a state, or art could look like that. In fact, that was one of the key emotions that I was telling the 12, 14, 15, the 15 over artists this year for all the shows, that the one key message or the one key emotion that I want to evoke, or to pull out from the audience is, oh, I didn't know art can exist in such a form. Yeah.
And it's interesting because one is about, it's a very democratic way of positioning art, that it's not just it's not an elitist thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, it feels that way. It's not an elitist thing. Art is really meant for anybody and everybody. And the second thing is to be able to facilitate these conversations. I mean, it feels very democratic also in a way that you don't need to know a lot about art in order to have these conversations. But if you are open-minded to come and listen to what people have to say, and it could be anywhere. Yeah.
Yes, I think that's.
It feels it's a very beautiful motivation. So
it's fun, I think. At the end of the day, I think what's important for me is I'm having fun. Yeah.
And the artists are having fun working with you as well.
Well, I don't know.
Just say yes.
Oh yes.
But also speaking about like people who don't know a lot about art, and I have one bonus question for Ashley. which is for someone who is just starting to build their art collection, where should they begin? Should they focus on what they think holds value, because some people think, oh, art equals investment? Or should they simply just focus on the piece that sparks an immediate personal connection?
For me personally, I think I don't collect arts. I collect fashion.
Which is the fashion you collect is the art pieces as well. Ashley, if you didn't know, has a great collection of comme des garçons.
Okay. I think you one needs to like what one collects. I think if you don't like it, it makes it worse. So I would not encourage people to buy art based on speculation or based on values or thinking from an investment perspective. Again, it's people do that. Okay, art is speculative in its nature, but it's also a refined hobby for some. And to me, as I feel that you need to buy something that you like. That's the most important, because if let's say that the investment failed, at least you don't hate it, or you won't like it. So I think for me is you need to like something in order to want to collect it. And yeah, I guess that would be my advice to people who want to start collecting art. You need to personally feel for it, and you need to like it.
We have seen, collectors who have come to the Kaimen Jianshan series at Journey East, and they have collected the pieces. It's a very heartening sign when at the end of the show, and then an artist comes to us and say, yes, collectors have purchased this piece, this piece, this piece. Yeah. We look forward to more of that happening. And the Kaimen Jianshan series will continue all the way until January 2026. It will culminate in Singapore Art Week. We have been speaking with Ashley Chiam, founder of Supper House, and thank you for being here with us. Cheers.
Thank you.